To get us started on this season's time travels, today is a lesson on when to stop, or maybe what to leave blank, as in white space. So what is white space? Well, it can be literal, like you see here, like there's actually white on both sides of this area of color. But white space can also be an idea, meaning it's a place for the eye to rest. So I have two examples here that are not actually white. The first is the birds on here actually give your eye a place to rest from the crazy busyness. And the second is these large circles actually give you some restful space. Even though they're yellow, they're still considered white space. So I'm going to show you how this all works. So the first and potentially the most obvious way is that you just leave some actual space white. So I'm going to go ahead, I've done a little bit of a background, and now my favorite way to stencil is to use cosmetic wedge sponges. And so here's a little tip. You can cut off the end of your sponge if it's dry and hard or if it's been used, and then you have a nice, clean, fresh sponge. Another tip is I like to use gray palette paper, because if I put out this gold paint, I think what you're going to see is that you see that gold color, you see that white so much better on the color gray than you ever do when you're working on another color such as white. The other trick is put as little paint as possible onto your sponge and try to mix colors so that you don't just have a flat single color. Then I like to pounce up and down through my stencil. Now, I think a lot of times people think when they see a stencil that they have to use the entire stencil, and that's just not true. You can use as little or as much of the stencil as you want, and you'll notice that I just hold it into place with my hand. You can tape it down if you're a little bit nervous. I also think it's better to layer in the colors, so I'm just going to lift this slightly, and you'll see that my flower is there. If I want it darker, it's better to go in with a second layer than to try to put through a really heavy layer of color. But when I lift this, look at that. It's beautiful. And now I have a focal point on here, plus the eye can rest. And that was so easy to do with just a little bit of stenciling. But things get more complicated when you start to add more. And as you know, I'm a maximalist and I will always add more. So I can take the same stencil and I can basically do the same exact thing. I'm pouncing through, I'm using two colors, I'm even going to use the same colors here, and I'm going to go through. And what happens is, and I'll pull this up for just a second, that's lost. Do you even notice that I did it? It seems like it disappears because there's so much there. When this happens, I think people start to get a little aggressive or nervous. I know that I do. So I grab another stencil and I say, well, maybe I'll try a different color, let's say. So then I'm gonna mix together, I think a little bit of this blue and some green, but remember, I'm dabbing off the whole time, and some gold for some shine. Because I think this is far enough away, it's across the color wheel from everything else, so this should really show up since that pink didn't. That should really be impactful when I do it. And again, even though this is an overall design, you don't have to do the whole stencil. But when I lift this off, what you can see is, it just doesn't look like there's anything there. It's so busy. So how do I create a restful place for the eye? Well, even if you've already covered everything up, I'm going to tell you to be brave and grab a paintbrush. It's going to be okay. We are literally going to take white paint, plenty of it, and take a deep breath. Here we go. Go ahead. Create some white space. You can turn that space gold. You can turn that space green, blue, gold. You can do whatever you want. You're just trying to create a little bit of space for the eye to see what's happening. And now that you have this area, you can easily add in whatever that focal image is that you originally wanted. And this time, we are going to be able to see it and enjoy it. So sometimes when I get over enthusiastic, which is quite often about my art, and I want to add more, I just remember that it's okay, because even if I forget to leave the white space at the beginning, there you go, now you can really see that flower. I can add the white space at the end. But it's not just adding it with, like, let's say a swath of paint. Maybe that's not your style. Another way that you can add white space, and you can see this is packed and filled, is you can take a stencil that's in a shape like the birds we saw, or even something as simple as a circle. And now with this circle, I can go ahead and I can add some literal white if I want right through here. And I'm using a dirty sponge, so it's gonna be a color, and that's fine with me. I like that kind of happy mixing. In fact, I can emphasize it. Let's make a little bit of purple with some blue. Color mixing is one of those skills, if you're gonna learn, I think it's a great one because it really can help you no matter what kind of art or craft you're doing. But right now, as soon as I lift this, you'll see, boom. There is a perfect little area, and it really stands out because it's so much cleaner than anything else on there. And if you want something a little more messy, one of the things I like to do after I've done that is I will take a paintbrush and then I'll kind of fake that I painted it because I have the guidelines. So now I can just kind of add a little bit of a circle, change the color up again, and really give myself something here that looks hand painted instead of stenciled because I have the comfortability of knowing that that's under there. And once again, now that I have this space, it's easy for me to add my focal point right onto there. I don't even have to think about it because I know it's gonna stand out from that busy, busy background. And I love techniques like this that are super forgiving and allow me to go back and add and change and do all that kind of stuff. And there is my flower once again standing out. So the thing that I like so much with all of these things is that when I journal, sometimes I forget to leave the space for the actual journaling. I just want to art so much. So if you look at the examples I have, now what I have in every single one of these art journals is a place to write down what I'm thinking about, right? I can add it into the literal white space here. I can put it into the yellow circles. And even on this incredibly busy page, I can do a little bit of writing with a white pen right into these birds, which I think would be super cute and really make the page fabulous. So whatever your style, find a way to get some white space in there so it really makes the eye stop.